is Nick Mills. I am an engineer, mixer, producer. I've been fortunate enough to work with lots of people over the years. Kendrick Lamar, Elton John, Burna Boy, do a lot of work with Stormzy, and currently working quite a lot with Loyle Carner, who's a UK rapper at the moment. I started as a runner in a big studio, kind of clawed my way in there, worked my way up from there, tried to learn as much as possible in sessions and on the job, and then eventually started engineering, and then finally sort of went free and started freelance engineering and kind of moved more into production and mixing from there. My sort of early years at Metropolis were very much spent getting used to learning what the gear did. I didn't have too much knowledge of audio or gear prior to going into Metropolis, and I think just using every spare minute, you know, to get downtime and just crank knobs and see what sounds they made and try and get to know stuff as well as possible. I'd say it's probably about 50-50 between home studio and big recording studios at the moment. I think generally just that's the sort of the way people are moving, you know, be it from funding and all that sort of thing. I'm also doing a lot more mixing as well, so I tend to do maybe 80% of that work at home, and then obviously because I am going to studios to do sessions for, you know, miscellaneous people here and there, I will often bring those sessions and check them either before or after. So I'm doing very much a sort of 50-50 hybrid between big studios and my home setup. I think moving from the big studio and doing more work from at home now and trying to sort of retain the essence of a big studio was something I struggled with for sure. Once you've had a taste of the you know, the expensive stuff, it's difficult to shake it. You know, your ears get used to a certain thing. So it was sort of about trying to bring the best of Metropolis and make it work in a home setup, and just trying to combine the two really, just basically trying to level up what you could do in the box and bring just the right amount of, you know, it might be an analog flavor or just, you know, some depth in your mixing. But I think, you know, once you get used to what you're trying to hear, you can obtain that quite easily. Especially when moving from big studio to you know, an at-home setup, I think the quality of the preamp is definitely one of the biggest factors for getting a good quality audio recording. I think you probably have more scope with what you're able to do with a better preamp. If you're working with a dodgy preamp, then you're going to have a lot of hard work to do it, you know, on the back end, which is what no one wants, you know. So I'm using the SPX-D a couple of ways. I'm doing a lot of tracking with it, actually, mostly vocals, but again, you know, some guitar and bass and stuff, both for myself and for artists that sort of come to the studio setup. But I also am doing quite a lot of mixing with it. I think the biggest thing for me is the consistency that I'm able to get, you know, studio hopping, which I do quite a lot of, and obviously moving from home setup to other people's houses to, you know, wherever you might be. It has kind of removed all the variables which you would probably encounter otherwise, and again, just made much less work for myself on the back end trying to match sounds of different vocal chains and all of this stuff, which is something that was, you know, good practice, but time consuming. If you can record on the road, almost in transit sometimes, like, it's a massive saving for whoever's spending the money on the studio, you know? So I think it's what a lot of people will be moving towards. Again, it's just efficiency. The more prolific an artist you have, they're going to be wanting recording all the time. It makes sense to have a unit there that you can essentially integrate back into your studio when eventually they do settle down and they do want to spend 2 weeks finishing stuff. But again, you know, just having that consistency of capturing bits and pieces in between those studio sessions just enables such a quick workflow and just streamlines the entire process. I think just straight out the gate, the preamp is just a different sound. If you were to A/B a 1073 to, you know, even some of the replicas or another pre, it's immediately full of sound, you know? And again, whether you're going for that sound or not, you have that sound to play with that you can then carve. You've got more to carve out if you're trying to, you know, do something else with it. But it just for me, when I hear it, feels like the quality of vocal I'm looking for more often than not. The EQ is also great as well, but I think, just to be honest, it's that the pre just out the gate for me is you know, one of the best sounding, to be honest. A lot of the people I work with, some of them don't have very loud voices, so you'll have to crank it quite a lot, and it's a very pleasing. It's not really a drive. There's no distortion. But there's such a pleasing thing when people speak quietly into a high gain 1073. That's my favorite thing. But again, you can also, if someone's shouting their head off when you drive it, it's a very forgiving, pleasing distortion as well. It's just, yeah, you kind of can't go wrong almost. It feels very, very versatile. To be honest, for the monitoring, I've just been using it quite in its sort of simplest form, and just sort of monitoring out the sort of default 1 and 2 settings when I'm mixing and stuff, and actually utilising the converters quite a lot. I think first mix I pulled up on this and just monitored out of the headphones, I was taken aback. I was like, the clarity with this is quite something, and it was a really dense mix as well, and it just did make it that much easier to sort of pick bits out and space things accordingly. And when you've got a 1073 pre in there, that's the big headline, right? But the converters in this thing are amazing as well. Removing the faff is what I'm all about. I think that's my biggest thing, is I don't want to be lugging bits and pieces here, there and everywhere. If I've got a 1U rack unit that just kind of does it all for me, that's what I'll be using. It's an all-in-one sort of one-stop shop for conversion, your pre, your EQ. Yeah, I think that's sort of like kind of what's been missing, is just something that does it all, and does it all really well. Obviously, you get lots of things that sort of do one thing really well and not so good on the other things, but this is quite a solid unit in terms of I can take this anywhere and get everything I need to be done. I would actually love to get an OPX hooked up to this thing and get just, I guess, just full band tracking capability. Again, because that can just be so portable if it needed to be, but also just, rack mounted in the studio, everything plumbed in, and just seamlessly into the session. And yeah, that also sounds like a dream, to be honest. The Neve sound to me is quality, first and foremost, and I think just a warmth. There is a warmth to a Neve pre in particular that just feels like you're in good hands when you listen to it, to be honest.